number of different kills.
I had a rolling.
So
I had a
Armagoyf,
match.
V-clicks.
Uncovered one.
He could be a blue-white jack.
X1?
Yeah.
So one of
Just making sure.
is it sounds like are we
Now that'd be the feature
okay?
match if I was playing up or down.
No,
I'm
you
gonna
could
wait
be.
a
If you're
moment.
pairing up, you definitely could be. Playing down, no
We're
way.
we're checking to see how that sound is working.
Especially when it's on camera.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, do we have the sound again?
Good sound again?
Okay, so we are beginning round 6,
I just
and
was hanging out with a buddy.
if these archetypes are correct, that means in 6 rounds we have seen 10 different archetypes.
Oh, sweet.
So that's only 2 overlap archetypes so far.
That's pretty awesome.
I think so too. I love this format. I don't care what MJ says. You know.
Professional curmudgeon.
Yeah, he is a curmudgeon. I mean, if he likes something, that's pretty awesome. But if he doesn't like something, I mean,
Ouch!
I'm not sure how much
I wonder
that.
if he likes
My
carrot
moves
cake.
never pick me up on the
Carrot
offer.
cake. What do you
Like,
know?
they're like,
He
I want
probably
to
dislikes it. He
feel
probably
free.
dislikes everything that is good. He likes like.
Especially when
I'm sure he
it's
likes
not
some
your
things. He must.
Oh, the stances are. I guess I replaced all the stuff that he had.
He's really into like Schadenfreude kind of stuff. You know, like
Look at that guy. That guy totally lost
I just set
out.
it down to grab my bag.
awesome. Like loves watching people come in ninth on breakers.
Like he hasn't scouted the player of the year.
I mean, I roll.
The matchup here is Ben Weinberg playing Counterbalance against Mike Hawthorne playing New
If
Horizons.
it makes you feel any better, I knew the player of the year and I didn't scout yet. So,
Have you watched GG's live tournament before?
yes,
Or-
I have, but I.
I guess I'll play first.
What? You sure?
Yeah.
Bazu?
You want to cut or shuffle?
Yeah, I'm gonna
So,
cut this guy up. Is that cool with you?
What we are hearing is that Mike Hawthorne is a contemporary of our champion from yesterday, Pat McGregor, and they play at the same store.
Okay, that's weird.
I'm not sure how Pat McGregor is doing today after his win in the standard this morning, but his friend right here is doing very well. Is this an undefeated match as well? Okay, these guys are both with 1 loss. Yeah, apparently Mike is the one that knocked Jerry out of contention.
Get a whole little paragraph section. Let me just tell you a story.
I like New Horizons a lot. I think that was one of the best decks before people really picked up on Survival. And
Now if you're at
now that
what you are,
Survival's gone, I
sort
can
of.
see it really picking up and doing well.
Well, you know I'm playing Misty Rainforest.
I am, and they're foreign
What was
too.
your name? Sorry, Ben?
Mike Hawthorne,
If only it was funny in
New Horizons.
God, if only.
Yeah, right? I'm telling you, man. Everyone,
And then for those of you who are just joining us right now, this is round 6 of the Star City Game Legacy Open Series. I'm Adrian Sullivan,
And I'm Jacob
Me
Van
probably have
Linden.
voice for your deck, though.
and we're watching the runner-up for the last year's Player of the Year race for the Star City Games
I mean, you can forward
Open Series.
double
Ben
IMs
Weinberg
and
with
forward
Countertop
pipelines.
playing
I think
against
you can
Mike
forward some.
You won't
Hawthorne.
believe it.
Mike Hawthorne playing New Horizons.
Somebody brought him back from the standard thing and I haven't seen him since, so it's cool. He's in my room. Go ahead. You can write whatever.
Terravor is so good.
He wrote Bird.
There were many times where I thought that he was perhaps just
Absolutely.
the best creature in a given format. Remember, there
So
was-
big, he
There were even
tramples.
times where he was in format at the same time as Tarmogoyf, where he was the superior card.
There have definitely been those moments.
It might have only been like a week or two, but those weeks existed.
Sometimes a week or two is all you need. Like,
it's up to
I
you,
particularly think about extended in certain moments where one week it was really clear that Elves was the best deck that week, and the next week there was no way you should play it.
I agree.
Where did you cut 3rd grade? Like,
Happy I played it that first week.
but my parents were like, oh, who's your target?
I've definitely had a lot of moments of near qualification, getting 2nd place in a PTQ, where it's a new deck that is really good, but then the next week is no longer good because the metagame has shifted, and at that point, the deck that I had spent the time working on is just a dead deck. You know, this happened to me when Owen Turtenwald just basically totally outplayed me in the finals of a PTQ, where I was playing Ponza and he was playing Fairies, and you know, he just straight up beat me out of me making a player and him playing really great. But then from the subsequent weeks thereafter, that deck that I was playing, which was great that day, I think I lost 3 games all day, 1 in the Swiss and 2 in the finals to Owen. It was no longer a deck you could even play because it just did not fit a metagame anymore.
Ben plays Sensei Tap. We'll automatically lengthen this game by a good
Sorry.
portion of time. Sensei Top might be one of the most powerful cards in the format, if not the most powerful card in the format. I remember when that card was in Extended, and I made arguments often that decks were unplayable unless they played with that card. Even Zoo decks. I was playing 3 to 4 copies of Sensei Top in my Zoo decks back then.
I mean, that strikes me as a little bit of a hardline stance on the card, but, you know, I can understand why you would feel that way.
I mean, I'm sure there are other decks that were good, but I personally did not feel comfortable playing a topless deck.
Trying to not say a lot of the responses I have to that one, but
You're so dry. Killing me. Like a little girl. Can't handle it. You're getting ashy. Yeah.
so one of the things that's going to be happening, of course, is whenever we have
Just
top
'cause, like,
going, there is going to be
lotion for my
a
guy.
ponderous element to the game
There's no, like, there's like
as we look and relook.
She doesn't have any lotion, so I'm shit out of luck.
There are going to be often many turns where the player will tap out between their main phase and their opponent's end of turn, or I should say between their turn and their opponent's turn, and have done nothing but activate the top with that mana. Spell Pierce here to try to stop that counterbalance, and here's the Force of Will. If there's not a force back, that's going to be a pretty devastating start.
Yeah, having balanced top and play at this early stage of the game is just...
Now, his opponent does have 6 powerful threats that are often going to be able to dodge that. Terravore and Knight of Reliquary.
He also has Vendilion Click,
And-
so he has a lot of 3s.
And he has Engineered Explosives. Engineered Explosives can be a 4, you know? It can really dodge it completely.
Would you almost rather have a 3 than a 4? Because Ben's probably got 3 to 4 Jace, right?
Probably. I mean, it might be better as a 3.
Taps some mana and he plays a Goyf.
Okay.
Huh.
Wow. Okay.
Reasonable.
Okay.
Instant sorcery land. So I gain 3.
Yeah, 21 to 19.
It's like he already knew.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually a pretty weak Swords to Plowshares. It only put that Tarmogoyf in the graveyard. Normally it does a lot more than that. It could have been just a particularly tough Tarmogoyf.
Never know. Yeah.
Yep.
That actually makes future Tarmogoyfs bigger.
Oh, okay. I guess there must have
Yeah,
been
no, I
something
didn't
that happened there.
Figured it out later.
And here is the path is cleared.
There's
for...
our carrion feeder off to the side that we didn't see.
Yeah.
You know?
And how many 3s do we have from Ben Weinberg? Do we have a list for him?
We do not have a list for him.
Okay.
She's not a big ins.
Just this one.
Thank you. I guess.
He has Trinket Mages. He has Vidalcan Shackles. So he has 3 3s.
Right. And if Vidalcan Shackles comes late to the party, it's always possible that that might be enough to capture something like a Knight of the Reliquary if it's not too big. It's going to be harder to capture a Terravore, though. That does not strike me as a Terravore that's been stopped.
A Terrorboy is a big, bad boy. He gets so big, so fast.
How big is he right now, though? He looks like he might only be a 1/1.
Yeah, he's a tiny little
A
man right
2/2?
now. But
3/3. Cracked land makes him a 3/3.
And that's power toughness in all graveyards, right?
Correct. So it is a 3/3 now.
is that so? It resolved. The Terrorboy. I'm somewhat surprised. See, if Ben had maybe activated his balance, No. I guess he knew, right? He knew the swords was on top?
Yeah, he knew that that swords was on top for the Tarmogoyf.
Okay, so Ben has played correctly.
And here comes a Shackles that can steal the currently 3/3 Terravore, which would be devastating. That would be a devastating moment. There's a Horizon Canopy to make it a 4/4, which might not be enough to get it out of reach if there's another island available. And there is a Sensei's Top to help try to find one.
14.
I mean, Ben has 4 copies of swords, so it's not unreasonable at all for him to find one, especially when he has a top in play and so many shuffle effects in his deck.
Between swords and between an island, any
Yeah.
island, there's a lot of things he can do here. Activates the top. Any island will allow him to steal that Terravore right now. Here's a Ponder. That looked to me to be a land.
That's the guy you're on?
Yeah, drop.
Absolutely.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Correct. Oh, wait, though. If he cracks it, the Terravore gets too big to be stolen.
Careful dance.
Okay.
I'm assuming eventually, maybe.
Oh, boy. Oh.
Fetch. Yep.
I wonder if Ben Weinberg realizes that the Terravore is now suddenly one too big to be stolen.
Yeah, he probably had it in his head that he needed a land.
Yeah. I need a land to be able to steal that guy.
I was like, oh man. We're good though? Draw my card? Okay.
He passes the turn. Now let's see. I'm going to attack you. Okay, he sees that he can't do it. He, again, though, has another turn to be able to find now a 5th mana in order to do the same thing.
Let's see how it goes.
Is that... Oh,
That's the swords.
Swords. Swords is sufficient.
That'll do.
Go ahead. Is that? Yep. Upkeep. Up to sword.
Swords that. And...
So,
I guess so.
5, right?
26.
Good to draw?
Mike goes to 26.
And off the top, what do we have? A Knight of the Reliquary, which is now, at this point, a 5/5. I mean, I think you just have to play it into that Shackles and hope that a 5th island doesn't come out to help.
I mean, you don't really have much of a choice.
Yeah, there's no other option. I mean, it's just going to get worse if he doesn't put something on the table to make this, you know...
Top in response.
Absolutely.
Again, this is Jacob Van Lunen here. I'm at the Kansas City Open Series, Star City Games. This is the first edition of SCG Live, our first weekend doing this. I'm here with Adrian Sullivan, and we're watching round 6 right now. These two are X1. It's Ben Weinberg playing Counterbalance
And
versus
here-
Mike Hawthorne playing New Horizons.
Here is that 5th land. Just immediately go and steal that guy. Oh, Stifle.
Stifles.
Now, obviously, this can be stopped very easily with the Counterbalance and Sensei's Top, but you still do it just because you want to at least make them do that work. Okay.
Yep. There was no work involved.
And there's no reason to use the swords.
Go ahead. And if this gets bigger, it doesn't check anymore, correct? The power toughness.
It only checks on resolution.
God, this is a nightmare. Oh. Wow. He just drew an engineered explosives. explosives for 3 seems pretty good. Make it for 4 if he wants, with a colorless or an extra extraneous colored mana.
So,
White, white, green, blue, perhaps.
You haven't played Land for the turn?
I have not.
I mean, he's still getting 2 for 1 here. That's the case.
Oh. This is still.
I think what's going to happen is that explosives is going to draw the brainstorm into
It's
Ben
green,
Weinberg's hand,
white, blue,
and a force
red.
of will is going to hit it away.
Okay.
Or there's just a Jace on top of his deck.
or there's just a Jace.
Ben's only playing 2 copies of Jace.
Okay.
It's good?
Yep.
You have a die on you I can borrow by
It's
chance?
on 3.
Okay, just to be sure.
Those are his only 4s.
People are watching you.
No problem.
Oh, it resolves. Now remember, Ben Weinberg has an engineered explosives of his own in his hand, and since there's no mana available to activate the explosives, Weinberg can just drop in explosives for 0.
Play this for 0?
And there it
That's a
is.
great answer.
0. Poof.
You good?
I will blow it. I will check 4.
And a beat.
22.
Go ahead.
Mike goes to 22.
Cards?
Both are like $4. Both is like $4. We're going there after this round of the draft.
Yeah, I'm surprised he paid that much extra for the engineered explosives. Like, had he just paid 3, that's still really hard for these types of decks to...
Yeah.
Good call.
Yep.
I mean, the thing about it is that if he had done it for 3, I still wouldn't envy his position.
Cast up.
You know, he'd be
Oh,
facing a...
Certainly not.
Check it for 4.
But I mean, as it is, he's in a pretty bad position
What do I need to show
with
you?
a big creature beating him in the head.
Never mind. Go ahead.
A win?
You went to 18.
Yeah, never mind. No, we'll just keep going.
Mike is at 18.
Okay.
Mike Hawthorne cycles through his deck a bit with
Top
Horizon Canopy.
There we go with untap.
Like,
Weinberg comes in for another quick beat.
yep. Pass.
Mike's at 14. Yes. It's the number of islands you control, and it only checks upon reference.
It never checks beyond that.
It, correct.
Okay. Just
None of the
for
Reliquary is
second,
such a
aside from
powerful
it
card.
remaining tapped.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
I remember when Zendikar was first being introduced. I saw it played at Geopeed and Step Links in the spoiler, and I thought to myself, maybe I should buy some of the other Reliquaries. This card hasn't really seen that much play. It's like a $3 card.
Mike is at 10.
Worked out very well.
Yep.
Good.
Players in Elder Dragon Highlander Pod number 2, please report to side events. Pod number 2 for EDH.
And finally, a
Ready to
scoop
roll.
is elicited
Accident.
from the opponent.
Ben wins game 1.
So Mike Hawthorne there, just basically having to deal with counterbalance top in play and
could
not
not
having
draw.
enough
I
3
feel like
drops to really hit it. And
lands after that.
he did have a moment where he cast as a 4 casting cost spell an engineered explosives, which tapped him down to 1 mana, so that Weinberg was able to come back with an engineered explosives of his own and blow up Mike Hawthorne's explosives before it could do any damage. Now, even if Mike Hawthorne had done the explosives for 3, however, Ben Weinberg did have a Force of Will in hand and did have Brainstorm on top of his library with a Sensei's Divining Top in play. So
It's a pretty good spot.
he could have just easily countered it, but as it was, it just meant that Mike Hawthorne was even further behind than he would have wanted to have been.
Just a second. I'm gonna go see how much time.
Now, Mike, in terms of answers to some of this, he does have 3 Croson Grip,
I'm not a huge like.
and interestingly, he also has Crucible of Worlds, which is going to go really well with his Wasteland.
Yeah, that's very strong in this matchup. It's a 3. It's so strong. Crucible against Counterbalance is one of the best answers you have for them.
Absolutely. On the other side, I think that Fire Spout and
See here, he also has Lawin.
yeah, Fire Spout is certainly a card that Ben Weinberg can make a little bit of use of to kill, if he's lucky, a Knight or a Terraform. I mean, let me just erase me saying Fire Spout. It's so unlikely that he'll hit anything of note.
Yeah,
Yeah, like,
I don't think he's going to bring that.
yeah. I mean, he's got a Path to Exile that can definitely come in to be a 5th
Okay, I've got a
Swords to Plowshares.
set up right now.
I mean, those are his best cards in this matchup.
He's got Peacekeeper. Peacekeeper can be a card that can be used to definitely hold off the table. His opponent's answers to
Peacekeeper might be really
Peacekeeper are however many Swords to Plowshares he decides to keep in, and Jace. Other than that, I really don't see anything that Ben Weinberg's going to bring in, but I do think he's pretty well situated in the first portion of the game to win. Now, his method of winning this game is kind of, I would call it, next level bluish, with 4 Tarmogoyf as his path primarily.
He has some Trinket Mages. Beat for 2.
Yeah.
And Shackles does some work.
Yeah, Shackles is definitely a card that we saw do a lot of work this match, or this last game.
So bad. The fact that Dana and Troy are probably texting me all my misplays right now, that's probably what I'm gonna want.
I'm sure I made an epic. I made a couple epic misplays.
It's actually, I beat Jerry when I really shouldn't have. I just like punted.
When I look at
Were you on
the
your
different
4-4
levels of
over?
counterspells that we can see from both players,
Should not have won. Should not.
Ben Weinberg has 2 spell snares, 4 Force of Will,
It's just the fact that like
2 days.
Like after last round, I was
It's
just
more
completely
pressure.
His
irritated.
opponent
It's so much
has
pressure. Just 'cause
3
my friend
days,
Like, I
4
can
Force
lie
of
the other
Will,
rounds and be
2
like,
Spell Pierce.
Oh, I didn't do anything wrong.
So they actually
I played
have a very
perfectly.
similar
But
counterspell package.
No, they
But
text messaging.
obviously,
There's a great thing called
if
text
a
messaging where they will
counterbalance
yell at
gets
me as
into
soon as I
play,
step away from this table.
that means that
I mean, they're probably yelling
all
in
of
the
the
chat box
work
right now.
Oh, I
that
guarantee you they are.
a counterbalance does
I mean, people are
can
probably
often
saying bounce
easily
Jace the Rude Blaster right now.
pull
for
a
me.
huge advantage out, even if you don't have library manipulation helping you out. And then if you get the lock or the soft lock,
No,
that's
it's
just such a devastating effect. Particularly if you're smart
You're
enough to
playing,
have
right?
the 3s in your own deck to be able to keep that on top and protect it from a Croson Grip.
I'm gonna launch. Okay.
Both players have Jace the Mind Sculptor in
You
their
might
deck.
want to talk about me back there, right?
Mike has 1 copy, and Ben has 2
So you
copies.
just think everybody's talking about you?
I'm
There
not
they
sure what
come
the
right
right
now.
number is for these extended decks. To be honest, I think I'd advocate playing 4 copies.
I was just about to ask if you were
I think
deciding.
it's very good. I also like
I'm
having
sure
an
it's
extra
about a dull
4s.
amount of time. I was just like,
I have plenty of time to decide, but I'm allowed to decide up until
it presents, right?
like he can be resolving his 6-card mulligan while I'm shuffling for my 6-card mulligan.
Yep. Yep. That's very true.
I just can't wait for him to decide his 6-card mulligan anymore. Do you play much Legacy?
almost twice a week.
Now,
That's cool. This is what you
I'm
normally
interested to
play,
see
or
how both players sideboarded.
play?
I think Ben may have brought in
survival rotated.
Okay,
some
fair
number
enough.
of meddling.
Yeah.
So you've been Revenge
What
Vine
does a meddling
himself.
mage
I,
do for
I
him?
actually didn't like playing Vengevines, so
Oh, okay.
believe it or not. I'll play
Potentially,
anything.
he can
I
use it
like
to
it. I can
name
build a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I used to
a
play
knight
that.
or a
that different
terror.
version of it.
I like it a lot. It was really good before Vengevine until like.
just keep it from hitting the
I
table.
used to play the red versions of it.
He also just named something like Force.
Canadian Thresh is one of my favorite decks.
You know?
Yep.
Like casting Nimble Mongooses.
I have a software, like, yeah. But the problem is, like, for the better players you play, you're going to lose a lot more.
I don't
Like,
think that you
they
usually
set
want to
Yeah, and like
name
when your best, like one of your
Force
best
of Will
guys is
though, because
outclassed
if
by
you
one
name
of
Force of Will, that
Super's
turns
guys.
off your own
Yeah.
Force of Wills.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and, like,
that's true.
also the fact that,
I guess he's not
like,
really
you get so many
combo.
free wins off the Nimble Mongoose, but it's just like, you can't kill Charmaglyph. And also when Knight Reliquary is popular, it's really bad for you.
Okay.
Yep. I'm going to try Ponder.
So, one of the things that was apparently discussed in the creation of this particular build of Mike Hawthorne's New Horizons is the question of Spell Pierce versus Spell Snare. And apparently Spell Pierce was getting the nod in this largely to be able to fight both Force of Will and Daze from Merfolk decks, which he expected to be very prevalent here.
Which I think is the case. I think Merfolk is actually the most played deck.
One lander all day.
When I was walking through the aisles, I saw a lot of Merfolk decks.
Turn 2 Meddling Mage. And if we can find out what he named, that would be great.
Rashad. Triggers, what Meddling Mage named?
Yeah, 3 cards, 4 cards.
Trace.
Wow. He
You're at 19.
okay. The Meddling Mage is
Go
not
ahead.
in play.
Thanks for
Glenn.
reminding me, by the way.
Die.
That was-
Force of Will was on the stack.
Yeah,
Force of
good.
Will just got
Meddling
that.
Mage did not resolve.
Okay. Yeah, there we go.
I guess we had to delay it.
Definitely misplayed there. Too huge, but that's fine. We'll survive it, right?
Yeah. That's why I yelled.
Go ahead.
I was trying to ask you.
So once again, I'm Adrian Sullivan here at the Kansas City Legacy Open Series. I'm here with Jacob Van Lunen.
Yep.
How are you?
Is that cool?
I'm cool with it.
All right.
We're in what round? Is this round 6 now?
This is in fact round 6.
Wow.
We just watched an awesome match last round where a relatively new face, Jacob Bao, made a huge splash by hard casting Emrakul in his Time Spiral deck. And he's currently 5-0 with that.
It's true.
So it's about as exciting as it gets.
I just really love somebody casting Emrakul with
Your
15
Tavern Horizon
mana.
canopy.
Oh lord.
Who doesn't? I mean, it's
Mike is now.
it's the most powerful spell ever printed.
My God, looks like a dead man.
I'm an idiot.
Was there a 2 on top?
And Ben is at.
Let's sing songs.
I guess
Actually, I
in
don't think I knew
context,
about that
a
card.
Battle of
You
Wits
did.
could be more
What?
powerful.
It was one deeper than
Yeah,
that.
I'm like, wait a second, no, I didn't know about it, so it's fine.
I mean, unless you're some kind of psychic.
Yes,
But I'm
Coalition
an idiot for
Victory.
just thinking
Or
that.
that- or those 2
Well,
drops are
I
marked.
thought I knew the card. I thought I knew the card, so that's why I fetched, but that's really bad. I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. I hate my life. Perfect.
Okay. So now we see
All of them.
I'm an idiot.
counterbalances in play. This is a really, really problematic moment for Mike Hawthorne. And
We're gonna
there's
play
part
through
2.
it. We got this.
No, that's fine. I just
Don't
want to
worry
make
about
it results.
Yeah, it's totally fine.
Like,
You're at 17.
top.
I am?
Yeah,
Two,
so-
yeah,
2,
yeah.
1.
He's
I told
assembled
you
what
and
he
I just
needed.
didn't
Yeah,
write
and they didn't write it down.
Whatever.
Top.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't need to write things down. I definitely like pitched slightly
Top.
when I just played it. Whatever, it's cool, right? Whatever.
It's land, Swords of Goy.
1, 2, 3.
I have 4 here.
Does not look
Yeah,
good.
you've got a lot to
Gone again.
Again, Mike Hawthorne does have Crossing
Oh,
Grips.
Yeah, Croson
This one
Grips
doesn't matter.
and Engineer
How long? Okay.
Explosives.
Go ahead.
Mike is at 21.
Top in a turn?
There's approximately 20 minutes left in the round.
We're fine. Throwing mage? Knight of the Reliquary.
Culture. Meddling
What?
Mage is naming Knight of the Reliquary.
Go ahead.
Is Meddling Mage just naming Knight of the Reliquary now? It's seems really difficult for a lot of these decks to handle this type of thing.
Mike goes to 20.
I love the thought after somebody gets crossing grip. The whole like, let me think about this.
Yeah.
Just seems so unlikely to me that there's some way you're going to respond to that crossing grip.
Thank you.
Just go.
If I smile any bigger, will it go away?
Terrible.
Somebody can quote that if they want. I'm cool with that.
Terrible.
Oh, the dudes in the
Go
deck.
ahead.
Oh,
You have Tarmogoyce?
those guys.
They're having a good time there.
Yeah. The second Meddling Mage is naming Terravore.
Making jokes.
3 open seats for a standard
Mike seems like he's in a
Winnabox.
rough spot,
We
like
have
he's getting a little
3
bit of money.
seats available. $15, 3 rounds of standard, you win a box.
Yep.
Come on down to side events if you're interested.
Okay.
Top of the turn?
Mike is at 7.
Go to my turn?
Yep.
Ooh, so there's a blue-black counterbalance Merfolk deck that's doing really well.
Yep. Mirror E.
I'm not
There's,
sure.
uh,
No, you're reading that
Really
wrong.
want that board real quick.
Don't worry about that just yet. We'll get
Okay.
we'll get to that in a minute.
Mike is at
I need to remember how many answers I have right now. Take 4.
I don't know about talking to Steve yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah. Like, yeah, I know, this one time. Totally untrue. What he did this? British shifty.
British shifty. Hunter's fine.
How can you trust somebody?
Can you repeat that? Negation.
That'd be fine, acceptable for you to cast right now.
Now remove 2 Spirit Guides. 13. And
Now,
being the Merfolk's version.
Ben's in a pretty solid control of this game, even with his counterbalance having been crossing gripped.
Yep.
Ben has a Trinket Mage in hand. Trinket Mage does not have that many targets in his deck.
Go ahead.
I suck it.
I think
He
it's.
has
Got my card?
Go ahead.
he has Pithing Needle, Engineer Explosives, and Top.
Right.
And that's an excellent like game 1 thing to have. In the sideboard though, he has a Relic of Regenitus, which could be a great card to get against a deck that's trying to do things like Tarmogoyf, Terravore, Knight of the Reliquary. It's an excellent card for the situation.
Float a blue.
Combat.
Top.
We wanted it gone. We wanted that blue gone. That was. No, you just said
My tale about how
Yeah, just switch
the reads my opponent.
It made sense. I wasn't like it was.
We both know what's going on.
Pay attention, all right? You didn't get your head in the game. Ouch.
Even my mouth did not vanquish.
I have 12 to 18.
You take another one? Yep. Go to 12. I can play those spells again? Mike is at 12.
I'll pop it. Okay.
Thoughts? Right here, go ahead. The Jedi times 2, like the Sith mind trick after the Jedi.
Time.
Now,
16 minutes, approximately.
what's going on here? I mean, like
Come on,
Mike
roll
has
the 4.
not really
Five.
drawn anything. when
5.
playing
I'm
at
holding
this
my
point.
own right now, alright?
He's tried for a few different cards. He
Oh, can you hear me? Okay,
finally has an EE for the Engineer Explosive for the Meddling
Cards?
Mage, but you know if your plan is to simply untap and play another Reliquary, it's not nearly as impressive as one might assume it would be. Right. So Mike decides to spell pierce the counterbalance. I believe Ben will shuffle away this top that he has. Maybe he has a second one in his hand, maybe not. And he will get another land, and he'll pay for the spell pierce.
For those of you who are curious about the winning decks, right now, if I were to do a overall breakdown of the lists, the most popular...
Magic players everywhere.
Nice. I'll wait a moment.
Loaned my ginger friend here some cards for his deck and would like them back. Please report them in the stage now so you can retrieve them.
So I can't sing like any terrible.
So the most popular deck that is being played at this event that is winning is Merfolk, with 8 Merfolk decks at the top tables. Now, a few of these Merfolk decks are black-blue. In fact, more than half of the 8 are black-blue Merfolk. Now, we have in second place with the archetypes Counterbalance, with 4 people representing. One of those is a natural order counterbalance. Similarly well placed is black-blue-green control variants, with 4 versions of those, 2 being standstill decks, 1 a Team America, and 1 a fairies with green.
All the hits, Troy.
I'm imagining
I hope you can hear that,
Goyf?
Troy. All the
Goyf,
hits.
yeah, Goyf, maybe
Grips.
Croson Grip.
Yep.
Now there are several blue-green aggro control decks, many with white. We've got 1 New Horizons, 1 Bant aggro, 1 Bant natural order, and 1 Canadian Threshold.
Pretty nice.
Mangara is showing up twice here. 1 Death and Taxes, 1 Green and Taxes. Oh, it's not in the Death and Taxes. My bad. So we've got 2 End Taxes at least. We've got a Death and Taxes and a Green and Taxes. In the more aggressive decks, we have 3 Goblins decks, 1 Burn deck, 1 Zoo deck, and 1 Affinity deck. In the more mid-range fields, we have 2 Junk decks and 1 Ava Green deck. And then finally, for the potpourri at the rest, we have 2 Welders Painter Servants decks, 1 Dredge deck, 1 Doomsday Show and Tell deck, 1 Time Spiral deck, 1 Cephalid Breakfast deck, 1 Blue-White Thopter Sword deck, and 1 Scepter Chant.
Now, the Thopter Sword deck isn't really a Thopter Sword deck so much as it's an Enlightened Tutor deck. It plays 1 copy of Thopter Sword, of Thopter Foundry and 1 copy of Sword.
Did we see that in round 1? Was that our round 1 deck?
Right? Like,
It was.
I mulled the 5. Kept
Yeah,
the
Mike
kept the
Posgay there.
one-lander,
So that
got
actually
2
can go up
melee
there with the
plays.
counterbalance decks then.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying myself in Kansas City. And there's a blizzard on our way home, and I'm gonna be angry about it. Right, Jack? He's gone? Good. He's not watching me. I hope he left. I hope he went back to Minnesota. I hope he hears that too.
I'm going to put a top activation on this deck, and I'm going to draw a
Draw a
card.
card? Yep.
Go ahead and top. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and cast this.
It's so much fun to have a counterbalance in play.
All the hits! 13.
This is where we're talking about different kinds of fun that people have playing Magic. I
We
enjoy
did not
having
go
counterbalance in play.
80. It's just that we
I
left
think-
and stopped. Yeah, we stopped.
How many lands? Can I see your lands in your graveyard? Okay, 1.
I kept a 2-lander. How many lands do you think
Yeah,
are in there?
I love spiking. It's not.
For, like, the-
It's not even so much that I like having having combo assembled because I keep a 3 on top, I'll keep a 2 somewhere near the top.
It's irrelevant right now.
You know,
Figure it out when it matters.
I'm bouncing around.
Like-
I'll
I like
the other card all the
Artifact
time.
instant land creature.
This is boring
4.
and it takes forever,
5,
and I'm gonna
6.
draw because in game 2 my opponent's gonna curve out perfectly and I'm all gonna 4.
It's 5.
I have no way to win.
Artifact
But
instant land.
that part of game 1 where I've just played the counterbalance and haven't found my top yet, because I my only counter magic that I had in hand was like forces. It's like I need to leave them untapped anyway. Like, so much fun to just flip over perfect cards all the time. Yeah, it's awesome.
Swords to Plowshares.
It's like it's like hitting gut shots over and over again.
Just doing a little bit of math on the metagame, it looks like the most popular deck, Merfolk, represents roughly 20% of the top end of the field. And the second most popular decks, if you want to group them into mass categories, which seems like an unfair grouping, like counterbalance as a mass category, you get 10% of the field. I think that's maybe reaching a little bit far. It's probably more accurate to say that goblins with 3 copies, as
There's
in,
a ton of people here from Minnesota.
at this point,
Go home, Jake.
7% of the field. is the second most popular deck
I'm not gonna let GGS
at 7% of the
I
field.
don't want it to be embarrassing.
You guys are approaching 10 minutes.
All right, I'll speed it up. Sorry.
I mean,
It's not like we're gonna go to a game 3 or
what
anything.
place
I
is
mean,
that?
I mean, we could.
These are all the people that are X1 and 1 or better.
I know you do. You do.
So, so you're bringing it to untap. I mean, Ben's gonna get to make a nice little swing here, deal
Well, I
some
mean,
damage to his
Yeah,
opponent.
everyone knew about that
And
one.
oh, Ben drew a top. It's pretty good. It's not too shabby when you've already got the counterbalance in
Go
play.
ahead
This one does have a V click though. It's a 5-turn
Spin
clock
that
right
guy.
now. 4
Keep it
turns if Ben
spinning.
draws and sacrifices a fetch land.
Let's go with just him.
That V click's not attacking. He left it back to block the Wendling Mage. Digs a little bit
Two-headed
deeper.
giant teams. You
Takes
have
a
10
peek.
minutes
Oh.
remaining in your round.
Okay.
10
Did we
minutes
see what it was?
in Round 2,
Getcha.
two-headed
Top on
giant
top?
seal.
The reason I'm making that
I'm
exclamation,
also looking for the players in standard
I'm
Winnabox
at
number
11 or
4.
9.
I had you at 9,
If
right?
you
Yep,
signed
9. I
up
just saw
for a
it. 9.
standard Winnabox, please return to the side event stage.
We're keeping it.
the
We're
reason
taking
I was making that exclamation is the announcement of two-headed giant sealed sounds like so much fun.
I would love to play me some 2-headed giant sealed right now.
it. I mean, you gotta try.
Results.
And as might be
Resolve a
expected,
spell?
Michael Jacob
Do I care about
considers
that
that a terrible format.
Rise was great. If you want me to start complimenting, Rise was awesome. Zendikar block was pretty. It was fine. Like it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
Zendikar sealed?
What was the last one?
That's not true.
That's how I made my Moto Million.
Good game.
Well, you're the only way you were winning
played
was
so
because
bad.
of variance, Mike. Mike,
It's
you
true.
are the luck sack. Imagine if this is like we live in this alternate reality
you're
where
on 5,
Michael
you can't.
Jacob is
Sorry.
actually the one who's
I'm on 5,
riding
you
the
can't really do
variance
anything.
train, and everybody else is like
No.
actually the skilled player.
No, in Zendikar block, I was 4 Q